Shelley Hirsch, writing while in it. Shelley Hirsch is a formidable extended vocalist long on the global avant-garde scene. She's unique in that she combines a riveting gymnastic orality, a very unique dadaistic meta-language, with warm, deep stories emerging from her life, most impressively remembering her early days growing up in East New York, Brooklyn. In spring 2002, my iMMERSE collaborator Bart Plantenga interviewed her for his book, Yodel-Ay-Ee-Oooo, The Secret History of Yodeling Around the World. For Bart, Shelley's piece, Haiku Lingo, is proof of yodeling in the modern world, that the yodel is useful in the repertoire of avant-garde vocalists. She's not a yodeler in the folk sense, but is among the finest, multi-voiced, extended vocalist heirs, along with clever abstract singers like Cathy Berberian, Joan, LaBarbara, and Sumac. But what makes Shelley different is her fusing of dynamic coloratura with deep, often witty storytelling, while bringing much-needed humor to the self-serious, rarefied world of avant-garde music. Shelley and I have often crossed paths over the years. First time was in 2003 when I curated New Sounds New York, the 3D Mono Sound Cube artists. Shelley was right there in full musical color with the chilling piece, Please Stop Scratching That Gash. Shelley, welcome to iMMERSE. Hello, Shelley. Good to see you. You're wearing a lovely shade of green.
I love green.
Well, that's an extraordinary green. High
How are
fashion.
you?
I'm fine, thank you. Well, it's lovely to be having this conversation. The last I saw you, I believe, was in Brooklyn in that
Dave's Waves.
Dave's Waves, yes.
Right.
And
Yeah.
a lot's happened since then. The world's changed. People we
Oh
know
my
have
God.
left.
It's just crazy. I mean, it's frightening, actually. I mean, people dying, you know, what can we do about that? It's sad to lose people that meant so much to us. But this war is, every time I think of Mr. Trump, I feel nauseated.
Well, I suggest you don't go there.
I know, I tried to avoid looking. I'm a bit of a news junkie, and I'm trying to avoid that, looking and reading and all of that stuff.
Well, it's definitely a focus, and you can always focus on another tune.
That's true. Turn the channel.
Exactly. You have an extraordinary gift as a musician, which has brought us together. I've been very happy that life has woven our paths at several points, and I welcome you to iMMERSE. This is the second season of iMMERSE. The first season, which lasted several years, was pure audio. We just began having YouTube videos.
Oh, I see. I better get this white thing off. No, I'm keeping it on there. What
I
the
think it's
hell?
fashionable. It's so good to be in touch with you again. You have this incredible mind that always was on so many levels at the same time, and wiggling and humorous. I just have always cherished our momentary contacts, and then some of the deeper ones, like the composition you did for the 3D sound show that the kitchen put on.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. And I'm really honored to be speaking with you now, and, so great to feel your appreciation.
Well, I mean, you've done the work, and being your audience then becomes or collaborator is then a gift. I've been particularly amazed at how many ways that you have grown. My grandmother once said to me, says, "Charlie, you've got to grow yourself." And I was thinking that's exactly what you've done, that you have in so many ways grown yourself and continue to grow. I've seen, I'm reminded, there was an old lefty expression about times like ours and people such as we might have mentioned or might mention in the future, and it was called forming a pearl around them. Did you ever hear that?
Ooh. No, I love both of those, you know, what do I call them? Metaphors. Yeah, I have a piece about a woman named Pearl and oysters. Yeah.
Oh, how wonderful. Was she a relative of yours?
No, it was just a stream of consciousness thing that came out. I do a lot of writing while immersing myself in music, and I write on the wall or on paper, stream of conscious, and Pearl arrived.
Well, what a nice vehicle. Pearl, here you are.
Ah, here we are.
on Shelley's vehicle. Well, I'm going to ask you the question I ask everybody that I interview for the iMMERSE series, which is, do you recall the first experience you had where you were somehow in a different place from where you had been before? I'll give you an example. Our friend, my co-producer, Bart, when he was a little kid, he was still with his parents in the Netherlands, and the tide on the Atlantic goes way, way out. It's a very, very extensive but shallow tide, and he found himself on the tidal flats as a little kid, and suddenly it was like being on another planet or another plane. It just was a reconnect or a rewire for him. So I'm wondering if you had any kind of early experience for you that was like that.
Well, my earliest experiences and what is still very important to me, I was always fascinated with acoustics. So, like, I would listen to music with my father when I was very young, and then I would take a piece of it and go into the hallway. It was like a 4-story apartment building with, I guess, 6 apartments on every floor. And then I would be in another world listening to that transformation of sound. And then I would go down. I had this little choral procession with the other kids in the building. See how that felt walking down on the staircase and how sound changed, and then arriving in this very little courtyard. I didn't even know how small it was until I went back there to make some video for O Little Town of East New York. And it's much smaller than I imagined, but the people would look out of their windows, and I was, performing and directing other children and collaging songs from different periods. And it's the same. I always walk through a space and I hear the acoustics, whoop, and then I'm walking through and finding the resonance in different spots. Or as I move through space, that feels transformative somehow.
How beautiful. Well, a few questions. Was that East New York in New Jersey?
No, it's East New York, Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Okay, because there is
Very wild.
maybe it's West New York.
It's west.
It's West, that's
This
right.
is, you must know Brownsville or
Yeah,
have
of course.
heard it. Well, it was Brownsville, East New York. It was once lumped together like that. But the realtors have tried to separate East New York and call it a certain part of it a different name, Cypress Hills. And Brownsville is still left, so that they can bring more people, get more money, all of that. But yeah, I was born in Brownsville.
Fantastic. And Do you remember the street address where you had lived, where these processions were?
Absolutely. I use them in my work. 544 Hemlock Street.
It was like being in some kind of a city cavern, the way it echoed and everything. 544 Hemlock Street. 544 Hemlock Street. 544 Hemlock Street.
And then we moved down the block and a half away to 625 Hemlock Street. So those numbers still loom large somehow for me as markers.
Wonderful that it sticks. Well, it's part of you, I think. And
Very much.
yeah, I remember there's a little pamphlet. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Philip Corner wrote some years ago in the Great Bear pamphlet series called "Walking Through the World as Sound." It's
I love
to
the
what you're
title.
describing. Well, maybe that you can find a copy of it. There are reprints and as well as the originals still floating around. And I think it was part of Dick Higgins' publishing, Something Else Press. And but it's a beautiful little book. And
I should find it. I'm staying in the flat of Luciano Chiesa. Do you know him?
I've never
And
met.
all of the books he has in English are, well, some of my favorite books. I was really surprised to see them.
Which
Like
are
one,
they?
well, Jerry Hunt's partner, Stephen Housewright, wrote a book that was published by Blank Forms, and Jerry was, my hero, and I'd spent 3 years doing homages to him and even virtual duets in different places, yeah. And Stephen is just this very tranquil Texan, just a very lovely, bright man who always accompanied Jerry. And yeah, I adored him. So both of them.
Well, it's great to hear about that book and to think about Jerry. He certainly was a rare presence and such an important part of our landscape as
Oh,
as a
absolutely.
community of sound workers.
Yes, and his performance was incredible. I remember at Roulette when it was on West Broadway, I had a friend from Europe visiting from Berlin, most likely, and a couple of other people who just happened to be there, not the usual crowd at Roulette. And everybody's mind was blown. And, he tried to play, he had the white lab coat on and was like a charlatan lab technician with his waving wands, which didn't really trigger anything, but he liked to think that they were in that particular performance where he'd tap a light stick on the ground and maybe even lie down a little, and I loved his work and
He,
him.
he had a spectacular transcendental sense of humor. It was sort of Harpo Marx in a way, because Harpo had this very easy way with being absurd and at the same time being serious. Uh, I think
Absolutely.
I once
Because you don't,
ran
oh, I'm
into
sorry.
Harpo, and he was at Tanglewood because his son was a clarinetist up there, and so he's visiting his son. He was wearing a Brooks Brother three-piece suit in the summer, impeccably tailored,
Mm,
and of course
wow.
his hair was perfect, so he was totally silly.
Well, I'm very silly myself. Uh, but Jerry, there's not so much humor nowadays in more contemporary music. And I'm happy that I go to that silly place. And it was also a way of connecting with Jerry. I loved his absurdities as a person and as a performer, composer. So,
Well, it's certainly a wonderful part of your repertoire. I remember seeing you perform early, and even in the most, say, rigorous piece. I think you were performing Steve Reich at one point.
no,
No, was it Glass? I'm trying to think. It was a strict piece of some sort.
huh, not me, but I remember the first time I ever heard Steve Reich and drumming and pieces for wood. And it was, I mean, everyone in the audience was shocked and we all stood and yelled. I wasn't as fond of Philip Glass, but I love his solo piano pieces.
They are lovely.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
in your own performance, though, you evoke many different moods and characters. I think that that's a rare quality that you've got. You're able to open so many doors, even very briefly. In the one piece that I know the best, which was the piece that you did for my 3D sound cube, you were dealing with a number of characters, and you were able to step from one character to another and just be there without any transition. It was as though you were performing as several people at once, that you had several of yourselves, just sort of passing the roles back and forth. How do you think about that state of mind when you...
In that particular piece, it was a portrait of a guy named Roman, who was a downstairs neighbor. And the other voices in that were actually looking at him and, commenting and being an observer. And so that was perfect for your sound cube, because I had the feeling of sound coming from above and to the sides, and Roman was the central figure. I didn't really do him, but, every now and then, but the voices, I mean, that's something that has always been important to me, is to be at once an observer and at another time deeply immersed. So, yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. I was pausing just to appreciate what you just said. And in your immersions, I think you've got a lot of levers that you can switches and in mood, in character, in tempo, in place. I think you become a vessel through which this information travels, and then you project it like a multi-projector. Does that seem like you?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, it really does. I thank you for that.
Well, how do you do that? Maybe you could just sort of jam and jump between a few different parts of yourself and show us how you stretch out.
Well, for example, that Roman, if I'm talking like this and then I feel him from another place as the observer, maybe I can bring someone from further away, from further away, giving their perspective. And that I am so grateful to have been able to do in your sound cube, because it really offers it offers one to speak from different directions.
It was fabulous to learn that you had that multi-dwelling from back in Brownsville and as roots, some people, one's roots somehow continue to produce branches as one goes through life. And it was wonderful to know that's where you started.
Absolutely. Bart knows for sure.
How about now? Where's your work taking you now from those roots? and from
Well,
immersion?
I do. I've always done a lot of writing, even as a child, but I had this amazing studio, a gift of my friend Jim Hodges, a visual artist, and I could really spread paper on the wall and often listening to Eliane Radic, who's no longer, and really just moving the body and what happens if you're moving your arm and writing while in it, and smaller, and so that's something that I've continued doing now and I just did a performance at the Kunsthalle in Schaffhausen, Switzerland, and then I really love this. It was in the round, or I really wanted it to be, and I had a friend hold up a board for me to write on, when I signaled them. And then I could see the different participants and use fragments of what I see or what I'm hearing in the room to kind of shake around a little Jerry-like, but not really, but so that I want to take that even further. I've done work performing with Hans Tammen, where he's playing his Eigren Grau guitar piece, and I'm writing on the wall, and I speak and sing at the same time as I write. All of the people were so I can have so it just transforms. The body is the biggest recorder possible in the storage house of memory. I've used that phrase a lot, but it really touches me, and it just seems like how I collect sound.
Fascinating.
And then collage. Oh,
I just said fascinating. Keep you're on a roll. Keep going.
well, no, I mean, yeah. So a friend of mine called me a soft collage engine.
Nice.
Because I'm piecing things together, often generated by movement and sound, of course, and then writing, and the texts, even the one about Pearl, was written in that way, and then I performed it. I performed the text that I had written, stream of consciousness, and I made music with it. So,
how do you know when you're driving this self of yours with all of this multidimensional output, where you are? How do you know where you are on the map of a piece? How do you know when it's coming to the end, or there should be a stop? Do you have an inner sense or an inner voice that's guiding you?
Great question. It's just being authentic and, kind of being in the, the moment of writing and what comes out. It used to be that I did a lot of vocal techniques, and, I was more known for like vocal gymnastics and things like that. Now, the writing and composing real time and finding the ending organically. It's just, of course, actually, all of these stream of consciousness pieces that I've written in the last couple of years, they just find an ending, and as I said, then I perform them or record them as of late. Yeah.
That's great. I think we could gather some samples that we can use in the show. After the interview, you could think about sending me some samples that Bart can collage in, or that we could have as a listening list separate from the show. You can do one or both. but it would be, I think, important for people to be able to reference, say, be in the middle of playing back this interview and you mention something such as you have, and then they could just jump to cue B3 and hear the ending of a piece, just so that there could be some understanding, oral understanding of what it is that you're talking about. Because now we're talking shop, but there's also the works themselves. And so to bridge that for a listener to proactively, put the pieces together.
Thank you. That's great. I mean, there is a video of me and Hans Tommen performing where I'm, writing, speaking, and singing online already. But then there are like the composed pieces, like O Little Town of East New York or Roman. I loved it. Paul Geluso set up 5 microphones for me. So I could move. I mean, there was the central drone that I used. It actually was from an installation by a collaborator named Simon Hostetler. And it was dust moving through these speakers. And so that, I'm not going to tell you how it was done, but anyway, that was the basis. And then I could move around these microphones and, find a different character, if you will, or perspective. So it was already edited in terms of sound placement and location. I love that. I'd love to do it more.
Well, that's interesting. In this respect, we have a big overlap. In a concert that I did at Niblox in '74, I had 6 microphones and I performed 2 pieces with them. One was the number 6. Each microphone had an output to a speaker on the outside of the audience. The mics and me were in the middle on Phil's loft, and the speakers were all around. And I did permutations of it. I have a book of those. The piece itself takes 4 days to count in various expanding forms of number counting. And the only content of that piece is the numbers, but the patterns are mesmerizing. And the other version is where I'm 6 characters on 6 microphones, and that improvisation works pretty much the way you were describing, and the motion between the microphones did that. I had a duo with Glenn Velez for a while called the Horizontal Vertical Band, where we each decided whether we're going to do a vertical pair or a horizontal pair of mics, and all of our motions were between these 2 pairs as we did our improvisation, but the spatiality was the piece of it. And it sounded like we've been, traipsing on some of the same quicksand.
Right, absolutely. I love that. I wish there were, like, sometimes I just did a large piece at Roulette with 9 people, and, I composed it and wrote the text, and also did some improvising in it as well. But I prefer, now that I just performed at this Kunsthalle, I was even inspired to want to make pieces in larger non-proscenium spaces. And I always dreamt about having different microphones so that I could localize the sound. So, wow, great. Sorry, I don't know that work of yours, but maybe I have to listen or find
Well, I think the number part, they're both. I'll send you files.
There are permutations and variations on older works which sometimes don't have the same kind of purity and intentionality that they did when they were first made.
I think that's always an interesting task for any performer, to do the same pieces over time. I mentioned there's some part of your repertoire that you continue to do, that you've done from the very beginning.
Well, my piece States, I don't know if you know it. that is something that I've performed over the years. And there are other pieces like
Could you
my
describe
homage.
it? Describe it
Well,
first.
it goes through different it's all from records that I listen to. And so there's samples, and it really moves through different landscapes. Like one I'm singing with these pygmies sing blue, it's actually, the piece has the word blue and blue skies, and at the end, blue moon running throughout in various ways. And then it goes to a mother talking, I loved it, about her lover. He made me feel like a queen, and all these different things.
Nice.
And that moves into a kind of Blanche Dubois kind of character.
Is this, I take it that there's a recording of that.
Yes, there is.
So we could make that available as part of,
Oh, yeah.
the show.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. Well, with a piece, then taking that piece, I think I had a piece that I've done from the very beginning of my career called the greeting piece, where I begin by singing and making a sound with hand gestures, and then I stop, and then you keep on hearing the sounds even though I've stopped singing. And it's just called the greeting piece, and I've been fascinated by that.
What piece?
A greeting piece.
Greeting, yeah.
Like I greet you, hi, hi.
Right.
And so this piece is about greeting. It's all different greeting gestures, like ho, ho, ho.
See, now I'm inspired and need to listen to more of your work.
Well, that would be, if it interests you, that's great. My point here was that doing the same piece for 60 years, it keeps on yielding new fruit.
Yeah. Yes. I've been lately performing a piece of Christian Marclay's called No. And it's all these comic book phrases, but no. You really have to, no. It's about having the physical gesture. And then there's a section where it's only silent and I'm just following open mouth, closed mouth.
Nice. Is that on video?
Actually, I don't think it is. Well, this woman, I guess, was filming my performance at the Kunsthalle, where I so I did that piece in one room with speakers, and I use a reverb to change the atmosphere, or feel like a background person. And then the other one I used Ilian Radik's music, which I was given permission to use by Mimi Johnson. And there I didn't use I didn't amplify my voice as well. It was just the music and me, finding, moving, whatever.
Well, but you have the capacity from an operatic belt sound to a belter to a shriek. You have the full range of a coloratura. I think that it's a rare opportunity to be able to use all of that.
Yeah, I love it. I love having access to that. I love more than ever, I have access to words, that if I'm improvising with people, it just is that vocabulary. I can't call it a vocabulary because I'm conjuring it, but I seem to be doing that more than, all my sound, pure vocal extensions, and it's somehow the words and in the rhythm of a word, what but it's very musical, because when I'm improvising with somebody, it's just part of making the music with them, the language, the word.
That's fantastic to hear you describe it.
I don't know. Okay.
Well, you sound like you enjoy what you do. That's a rare.
Definitely do. I mean, because just reaching and, as I said, having access to the musicality of words as a vocal instrument, performing with other people.
Extraordinary. You were saying that you were thinking about using large non-proscenium spaces. Why don't you talk
Yes.
a little bit about that?
Well, I just feel that, this last thing where at the Kunsthalle, where I was just in the round, where, I mean, several rows of people in the round, and I could move through space. And that movement through space also, as I mentioned before, I could bring something to that person that I see, or I can't believe they did it, but this audience was comprised of a lot of performance artists, and I would say, "El pico soi," and they would actually repeat it back. I was shocked as the kind of Greek chorus, and then move. I had this dress made out of a shoe holder, like you hang in your closet and put your shoes in. And I had it filled, like one pocket was rice that I'd spill out, and the other was sugar, very different texture, and paper that I could rip, and, the sound that it makes interacting with that spontaneously.
Fantastic. I hope that we have, you said this was shot, so that there's a video somewhere that might materialize before we, put the show up. So let us know what material we can use as examples, because that one sounds absolutely fabulous.
Right. It was a small audience because afternoon, Sunday, but I just, I've done a lot. I mean, I did a piece with a collaborator, Barbara Bloom, that was on a turning stage. But then the next piece that was produced for Jerry, called An Homage and a Virtual Duet, I had the audience on the stage because I made an installation of like white cables with monitors, with Jerry and Stephen also coming in and speaking at various points.
Nice.
And they didn't like that because it could only be 99 people a night, as opposed to the theater with, hundreds of people every night. So, but yes, I would love, I'm not very good at asking for performances. It's just, I don't know. I wonder if it has anything to do with my working class roots somehow. Like, I want to know that people are inviting me. There are people, I mean, sometimes if I want to go to an amazing place that I know a curator, who I meet a curator and they say, "Oh, I'm curating a performance series in Zimbabwe." I mean, that never happened. But I would, even without pay, just travel just to be in another environment. That happened in Russia the first time I went. I had never been to St. Petersburg or Moscow, which I wound up going to quite frequently. Of course, that all ended, because of the war, and before that, the pandemic. But people would say, oh, you must be a good networker. You're getting all these. It just happened. I just, for example, I would improvise with two people. Oh no, I was doing a Christian Markley piece, Dead Stories, and then they had these smaller spaces where I did my compositions. And from that, I had work for a couple of years, because at iMMERSE Festival, there's a couple of thousands of people there. But yeah, I just would love to be able to do more. I also have done pieces on staircases, which I love. Now my knees aren't that good. I might have to think of my safety.
Well, I'm sure you'll find solutions. I think staircases have well, obviously a long history in your life back to Brownsville and
East New York, I have to
East
say.
East New York, right? That's right. The Realtors, East New York.
East New York, Brooklyn, on the far reaches of New York City. You don't think about this place. You don't think about this place at all. It's sort of locked away in a little enclave, but lots of people live there. I was born there and lived there until 1969. Thomas Wolfe wrote a book called You Can't Go Home Again, but you can always remember.
Well, East New York, this isn't really. East New York was the name of it, and connected East New York, Brownsville, or Brownsville, East New York. It still remains East New York, but sections of it that look a little fancier are called Cypress Hills. And yeah. So, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, it's okay. You were distracted by my mentioning that your staircase began.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I've done workshops when there was a staircase to be used, where I had people use the staircase in their improvisation, and different people would take the bars or slide or see what came out as they were descending or ascending the staircase.
Well, I have a suggestion for you.
Yeah.
One of the pieces I enjoy so much of Max Newhouse was a piece he did for staircases, staircase installation. I suggest you make installations.
I know the pieces of under several of his works, but I don't know that one.
He did that for the Whitney in New York, and where he
But
had
what year?
what year? Let's see. Would have been, I think, in the 80s.
Huh. 80s,
Maybe.
I was often between Berlin and Europe and New York.
But my suggestion is that you make installations, recordings of some of these stairway pieces you make, because I think they would be welcomed. Almost every museum, every concert hall, they all have staircases, and a staircase installation would be a treat.
Huh. I like that idea a lot. One time I did a piece that was part of an installation, and it was all visual artists, and it was a ramp, and I had little speakers saying your neighborhood, as they descend. But I'm a high school dropout and a total autodidact, and I'm triggered by, as I said before, various spaces. A tree can just, looking at trees and movement and, walking through a forest and then suddenly coming to an opening, things like that really inspire me.
Well,
Am I getting off topic?
No, you have come to a great place for us to stop, because I think
Okay.
that's a wonderful evolution from the staircase work as a kid through the contemporary improvisations, and now something of your vision of larger performance spaces and then performing in nature. So I think you're let's say, you're walking through the world as performance.
Yeah, I have to read that, definitely.
I think so.
Thank you for having me, Charlie.
Well, it's really my honor because loved your work, and we've known each other personally, and this was a long time coming. And my partner
Yes.
Bart has, is a tremendous fan of yours, and so we're both delighted to have this show to put together. So, but thank you for being on iMMERSE, and we'll keep you posted. Well, thank you again for the interview, and we'll be in touch. I hope you enjoy the rest of your travels.
Thank you.
Take care.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye.
iMMERSE.